Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to ASU's Memorial Union for today's Career Navigator. This is an event sponsored and hosted by the School of Geographical Sciences and Urban Planning, and we're so thankful for you all to be here today. We are curious, in fact, who is here today. How many current ASU students are there in the room? Fantastic. ASU alums. Alums from other universities, including the University of Arizona. So there is one who we will meet later. We hope today, this is the start of 5 hours of opportunity for the students in the room here and folks who are considering career and professional changes. We'll have a 1 hour session now with 6 different lightning talks. That'll be followed by a 2-hour career fest across the hallway, where we have more than 60 organizations and 120 people representing those organizations with whom we hope you'll engage. And then there's a social activity later this evening that perhaps we'll hear more about later. So 5 hours of opportunity for you that we hope you'll take advantage of. We hope this will be a fun time for you, productive, meaningful, inspirational, and educational as well. And with that, I'd like to start with our lightning talks. We have 6 speakers. And we're so thankful for them to spend time and share their wisdom with us. Our first speaker is a meteorologist with the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. He has PhD from ASU in geography, focusing on meteorology and climatology. He's currently working in the ADEQ Air Quality Division, where he produces daily forecasts for the state and is the lead forecaster for for the smoke management program in particular. He's a common face around ASU campus, has experience teaching college-level meteorology classes and working in broadcast news. Certainly a friend of the program. We are really appreciative of him to be here. Please welcome Matt Pace.
Can you guys hear me without a mic? I talk kind of loud. Oh, I need a mic, the camera. I don't do this job anymore, so I'm not used to holding a mic. Anyway, I am Matt Pace. Again, I really don't do this job. There you go. Good? Perfect. Again, Matt Pace, meteorologist at the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. And this event is so exciting to come talk at because I think one of the biggest things that you can do as students is get out there and network with people. Make sure you know your advisor. Make sure that that advisor actually likes you. My advisor is sitting right there, Dr. Randy Cerveny. And without him, I can honestly say I would not be anywhere near where I am today. Most of the jobs that I got is because of him right there. So it's kind of a cool thing that then I can come back and talk to you guys and tell you how important that is. So it's certainly make sure you get out there, talk to your professors. Even if you don't think you're going to deal with them later on, they're probably going to come back to you at some point, and you'll need that letter of recommendation. You'll need something from them. So just make sure that you always are keeping those contacts up to date. So he already went through this, but some of the stuff that I did while I was here, it was a fun time here. I was here for quite a few years. I actually started at MCC and then transferred over here. But I did geography meteorology 2008, and then my master's was looking at the impacts of a golf course on nocturnal flow here in the valley. So it was cold air drainage. So got to go out in the superstitions, put a bunch of monitors up. Hope they didn't get stolen because I only had 2 weeks to do it. So no permission. Don't tell anyone. Oh, this is on camera. That's kind of sad. And then I came back for my PhD and looked at climatological isentropic analysis and tornado forecasting. So yeah, looking at tornadoes in Arizona. Doesn't seem like it makes sense, but it does because it's climatology. It was fun. Then from there, I did go off and taught at MCC, and then I did have a stint at a local news station here where I learned how to point at a screen, and then I used a lot of the connections that I made during that job to get another job. So that's another thing. When you're at particular locations, obviously you're not looking to leave right away, but certainly reach out, make those connections with the community, especially any sort of degree that you're looking at. There's always different sectors where you're going to fit in. Even if you don't think there's a job there, there is probably a job there for you. I'm a meteorologist. You think, oh, the only place I can work is the National Weather Service. But there are a million jobs out there for weather people. Just simply look. So one of the things that I do at ADEQ, I'm actually the lead forecaster for the smoke management program at ADEQ. So who noticed the smoke last week over the valley? Anyone? Yeah, that was kind of our fault. But the good news is it stayed high, so it did not hit the ground. So that's one of the things we actually do for smoke management. We actually approve, disapprove, or conditionally approve all of the prescribed fire in the state of Arizona, besides the tribes. We have no jurisdiction over the tribes. What they do is they submit their plans to us. We then look at them that day, make a smoke forecast, see where that smoke's going to go, in constant communication with the Forest Service. A lot of the times we'll actually be out at their burns to see where the smoke's going, how's it doing. I'm talking to them, see where that smoke's going to drain. It's kind of an exciting job because it's constantly changing. The best part about the weather, it changes every single day. Everyone always thinks here, hey man, the weather is so boring, it's just hot and dry constantly. Well, when you're dealing with fire, smoke, cold weather, breezy conditions, calm conditions, forget the rain, it is a very complex forecast to make, certainly when you're dealing with smoke and wildfire. That's the fun part. Now, I'll be honest, there is some drawbacks as well. What happens when you put smoke into Sedona, Prescott, Flagstaff, Payson, Show Low? What do you think happens? Starts with a C, ends with complaints. Complaints. We deal with a lot of complaints. Obviously, someone is going to be impacted by the smoke. Our job is to try to forecast exactly where that smoke's going to do and minimize that impact by reducing acres, have them speed up ignitions, have them stop ignitions. So there's a lot of coordination that goes into it as well. We also set up a bunch of monitors. So here's what an air quality monitor looks like. This measures smoke, so we can actually tell how much smoke a particular person would be breathing. We have one of these set up in the career event. So if you want to come over there later, I'll actually walk you through how these work. We're also working with the U.S. Forest Service right now on visibility. How is visibility being impacted by smoke on roadways? There was an unfortunate incident 2 years ago where there's actually a fatality on the I-40 due to low visibility. So that's why we're starting a lot of research in smoke, visibility, super fog, that kind of stuff. So a lot of new science is coming out of smoke management, smoke, especially here in Arizona where we have a lot of topography. So certainly if you're into research, even if you're not a meteorologist, ADEQ does a lot of good stuff actually on the ground in the field to understand even more and more of what we're doing. More smoke management stuff. Obviously, we use a lot of the tools. We use blue sky models to try to figure out where the smoke's going to go during wildfires. We'll start forecasting where that smoke's going to go, coordinate with the U.S. Forest Service. Obviously, look at satellites, and again, we'll go out here. So here's a burn. That's what it looks like on satellite. From the ground, sure, you can tell it's moving off, but from the ground, you can't tell it's going all the way into New Mexico. So a lot of people think, man, you guys have the easiest job. It's just that little spot you're looking at right here. Smoke can travel for thousands of miles, and we have to look even outside the state. So it's certainly fun when you start coordinating with the other states as well on where that smoke's going, other regions that are dealing with prescribed fire. So there's a lot of coordination with this particular job. We also use GIS a lot. So if you're into GIS, certainly use that for plotting all of our burns. We try to look for historical patterns. We try to see where they're probably going to burn next, get planning of where they're going to burn. And of course, Google Earth is our best friend. Crank the topography layer up to 3, and you can really start to see the drainages. So what do you think smoke that we care about the most? Daytime smoke or nighttime smoke? He says daytime. Does everyone agree? You're close. It's nighttime. Nighttime smoke is what we care about. Daytime smoke, you normally get that up and moving off in a certain direction. Example, we have a prescribed burn that was scheduled for up here today. I was up there yesterday looking at the prescribed burn, talking with the Forest Service, talking with State Forestry. We knew what was going to happen. That smoke during the day, it was going to move up and over Sedona, over Prescott, and probably over Phoenix again. But at night, it was all going to drain down the canyon straight into Sedona. So we put a monitor in Sedona. We then put a monitor in Cottonwood. And it's one thing that we have to do is try to determine where we want that monitor based on where that smoke's going to drop. So there, again, is a lot of coordination. I must have said coordination 3,000 times. That's because coordination is key with this job and probably any job you have. The more you get out there and talk to different groups in your agency, to different agencies themselves, the more you'll see you're all working together as a partner. And that's one of the things I've been trying to push at ADEQ is we're a regulatory agency. And the U.S. Forest Service has to come to us to get approved to burn. But now we're trying to change it so we're actually a partner with them. We can help them burn. We can get their mission done while our mission can get done as well. So certainly an exciting job. We also do air quality forecasting. We issue a daily air quality forecast for the next 5 days. It's hourly for Phoenix, Tucson, Nogales, and Yuma. Does anyone know about our forecast? I didn't think so. A lot of people don't. We actually have our app as well. It's the Air Arizona app. If you want to download it, you can see our forecast. We do an entire forecast discussion as well. So if you're curious about air quality and how it links to the weather, You can just go online, just go to azdeq.gov and get our forecast. How we do that, obviously, we look at models, satellite, weather balloon soundings. We actually do have some air quality models. This is one of them. This is actually the GEMMOC. So Arizona is here. Unfortunately, this model is the highest resolution that we can get of that model. It's mainly a Canadian model. So we have to rely a lot on our weather expertise and then tying that to air quality. So that's another thing that as you're going through school, you might think, why am I in this class? How is this possibly going to relate to me? This is the most boring thing ever. Then when you get to a job, it's probably going to relate in some way or another. And you'll be like, man, my professors were right. It does somehow apply. And then obviously you can email them and let them know. Other things we do is we do a lot of coding. A lot of this stuff is new to the science, so to speak, and how we actually do our forecast. This is what just a part of our forecast looks like for ozone with our hourly curves for PM10. Anyone know what PM10 is? It's dust. What is PM2.5? It's smaller. It's smoke. So think 2.5, it's smoke. PM10 is dust. We just like to use the fancy terms because we're a government agency and you have to use fancy terms. But we do a lot of coding. Most of the tools that we have, we've coded in R, we've coded in Python. We do a lot of PHP to display these graphics. So there's a huge realm of possibilities at ADEQ. And keep in mind, I'm just from the air quality division. We have the water quality division and the waste management division as well. So there's a ton of different products that come out of ADEQ. But the big thing that I'll go back to is team effort and communicating accurate information. Anytime you're at a job, always make sure that you are giving the most accurate information out there as possible because people are looking at it. I only have the job I have right now because I was able to do stories with this particular agency, ADEQ, and I presented their information accurate. That came back 5 years later and actually helped me get that particular job at an agency. So certainly, you never know how things are going to pan out in life. I've gone from MCC to launching weather balloons at SRP, to being a weather observer at Phoenix Sky Harbor, to, again, the news, to now working for ADEQ. You always kind of go through all those different aspects of networking and, again, talking to your advisor and really understanding what they want from you and what you want from them as well. Because they will be your best friend if you can actually get to know them, and then they'll help you get that job as well. So I will be at the ADEQ table later. Hopefully I didn't go over. I know you said 8 to 9 minutes, so I will stop talking now.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt. As a fellow faculty member, it's always nice to hear the mentor championed as part of the experience, but I think you've heard a lot of other skills and traits that Matt has brought to shape his own trajectory as well. We, for the most part, will not take questions during this hour. We have 2 hours in which you can engage with our speakers after this over in the ballroom. With that, we're happy to welcome our next speaker forward. He has his educational roots in the Midwest, including a master's degree from Ball State University in urban and regional planning. He's currently the senior planning project manager for MAG, and before that, he was a senior planner for Avondale. Planning appears to be the family business. I understand that his spouse is the planning manager for the city of Goodyear. So we're going to perhaps hear a little bit about what that is like to have planning as the family business. Please join me in welcoming Scott Wilkin.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming today. Again, Scott Wilkin, he got my name right, practiced beforehand, so he's a professional. My educational background in a nutshell is that I went to a small liberal arts college in Illinois called Illinois College. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I went to college, which is the first mistake I made. But then I started to realize I liked history classes, I liked geography classes. So I started taking a bunch of those, and then it was getting to be senior year, and I realized I'm not going to be able to get a job with this degree. Luckily, my advisor had a flyer about a urban planning school outside his office, and I saw that. Thought it sounded really interesting, and so I went to grad school, got a degree in urban and regional planning, and then got a few jobs in planning, and now I'm at MAG. I'm going to talk about my previous experience last, so I'll go out of order. And I've got a few words here up on the screen. Mostly I'm going to be talking. I don't have pretty pictures like Matt did. So MAG, Maricopa Association of Governments. We are the Transportation Planning Agency and Air Quality Planning Agency for the Phoenix metro area. That's air quality. That's why I knew what PM10, PM2, 2.5 are. We do, those are our bread and butter. We get federal funds for transportation planning and for air quality planning. But then we get a lot of other grants and we get a lot of other funding to be able to do other things that help our member agencies. Our member agencies are every city and town in Maricopa County, a couple of them in Pinal County, the county governments themselves, and the 3 Native nations in Maricopa County. So when they need something, we're able to help them with data, with studies, reports. We do a lot of economic development. The last few years, we came to realize that economic development and transportation are intricately linked, and so we wanted to start looking at what we could do to help our member agencies with their economic development. We also do a lot of human services planning, assistance for aging, for elderly. We do an annual point-in-time homeless count of all the homeless population across our region. We also do something that some people at some of the cities, it's the only thing they know about MAG, the construction specs book. There's a big book, it's about this thick. It's got specifications for anything that you can do construction, for street construction, sidewalks, parking lots, buildings, all that kind of stuff comes in there, and the entire region uses it. And there are a lot of people in the construction industry that know MAG for one thing, and that's that. And we do a couple other things for in addition to that. Building code interpretation is another thing. That's something that the building code folks like as well. So what I do at MAG is that I'm in regional analytics. My job primarily is to help gather data, help refine it, work with the cities and towns to find out what they have or what they need, help get them to review our data. What else did I put up there? These are some of our big projects. We do population estimates annually. We do long-range projections of population and employment. We do a lot of work with the Census Bureau and special projects, very special projects. We did a tool, kind of a little model that will tell you if you've got a development with this mix of residential, non-residential, commercial, whatever, what's going to be the effect on your bottom line, your fiscal balance of your jurisdiction. We did daytime population estimates, which we thought was interesting. When you think about population estimates, you think about the census, you're really counting where people sleep, but daytime population is pretty important to public safety and to transportation. So we count where people are going to work, where they're going to school, if they're staying home all day, and we did daytime population, and that was a pretty popular one as well. When they asked me to come up and do this speech, they mentioned that you guys would be interested in what I do at MAG, what I like about my job. So that's what I do. I like it because it's a great place to work. I like working with all the cities and seeing what they're doing and helping them. The problem is, from your perspective, is there's only one of these jobs, and I fell into it. So it's not really good career advice. If you can be me, it's great. You've got a great job. But otherwise, not very much help you can get there. So I want to talk about my previous experience because there are a lot more jobs like that. So before coming to Arizona, I worked for, my first job out of grad school was I was a county planner for Jefferson County, Missouri. It's a rural county outside of the St. Louis area. Kind of think like parts of Pinal, like the rural parts of Pinal County with a couple little settlements in there. And then I moved up to the big city. Hoffman Estates is a suburb of Chicago. It's actually a village. People that I worked for there, we call them village people. Meanwhile, my wife had just finished grad school, planning degree as well, both at Ball State. She got a job with the city of Rockford, which is about an hour and a half from Hoffman Estates. That was as close as we could get to each other, and so we said, this is stupid. We should at least live in the same area code. So about 2005, we looked, and there were a lot of jobs in Arizona. Applied to a bunch. I got a job with Avondale out on the west side. A couple months later, she got a job with Goodyear. So we went from being a couple states apart to being a couple hours apart to being 2 miles apart, which is cool. And she's still there to this day. The big things that I wanted to talk about, though, most planning programs, and maybe ASU is the exception. I didn't go here, which, by the way, thanks for letting me hang out in your alumni lounge. I don't know if that's kosher or not, but most planning programs don't teach you the things that you're going to do if you're a municipal planner or a county planner or working for an agency like that. Great about teaching you about planning law, history, theory, all that stuff is really interesting and helps give you a background. But this is the actual stuff you do. Ball State's a fantastic program, and I learned a lot of stuff there about, like I said, about the law and about theory and about design aspects, things like that. A lot of that stuff helped me pass the AICP exam, but I had to learn all this stuff on the job. Site plans, when somebody's building a shopping center or something, your job is to look at where's the building on the site, where's the parking, where's the landscaping, does this meet the zoning regulations, does this meet the design guidelines? That's the kind of stuff that you kind of have to learn as you're doing it, and it's a lot easier if you come into the job knowing it. Preliminary plats, when somebody is subdividing land and they want to make it a new neighborhood, a new subdivision, that's the first step. They're basically, it's a residential site plan showing you where the lots are going to be, the streets, and you have to review that to make sure it meets the subdivision regulations. General plan amendments, planning students, you've probably heard about general plans. They're really important. They're the foundation for how the city's going to develop. Most of the time you're only looking at the land use plan, and every once in a while somebody is going to have to amend that land use plan because they want to do something that's not allowed by the land use plan, and so it's your job to make a recommendation on whether or not that should be done. Use permits, variances, rezonings, these are all things that I had to learn on the fly in my job. At Jefferson County, I did a bunch of those. Hoffman Estates did stuff way differently, and I had to learn that kind of stuff. So my biggest advice, if you're interested in getting a job as a city planner or a county planner, internships, I think, are one of the best ways to go about that. Even if you can just go in there one day a week and learn what they're doing, how they're doing it, ask questions and say, can I see a site plan that was already reviewed, or can I see a preliminary plat or a use permit? Just get familiar with this stuff. While you're in school, those are the kind of things that maybe you can ask professors. Do you have any of these examples that you could show, you bring in and show us one day how you do this, just so you're not going in completely cold. And then another piece of advice that I picked up watching somebody else that we hired at Avondale several years after I was there, ask questions. If you don't know how to do something, don't pretend you know how to do it, or else you're going to be like this guy that lasted a year and you had to get rid of him because he just pretended like he knew how to do it, and it turns out he didn't. The most important thing, though, if you got familiarity with these or not, presentations. If you're working for a city, if you're working for a private agency, you're working for the state, most jobs like this, unless you're just plugged into a computer all the time, you're probably going to make presentations to somebody. At the city, you're going to make it to the planning commission, to the city council. If you're working for a private consultant, you're going to be out on jobs trying to get the work and trying to present your proposal for how to do stuff. So if you have the opportunity to take speech classes or give presentations just anywhere, Toastmasters, that kind of stuff, help develop your public speaking skills, get over whatever phobias you have, because it's really helpful in the job, and then once you start looking for another job, it's really helpful to be able to think on your feet in your interviews. And I think that's something that's, even if you're not the most qualified, if you can sell yourself as the most qualified because you're such a confident speaker, that's something that's really helpful too. There's my time. Thank you.
Scott is also an avid drummer, which he did not speak about, but maybe we can learn more about that in the subsequent 2 hours. Thank you again, Scott. Many of you in the room are in our professional master's degree program in GIS, and we have a shining alum from that program as our next speaker. She is currently at SWCA Consultants in Phoenix, which I just learned is rated 4.8 stars on Google. Only 4 reviews, though. I'm not sure who reviews on Google, but we can learn more about that. Are there any Pittsburgh Steelers fans in the room? Any Steelers? Yeah, a couple. So you might remember there was a player for the Steelers a number of years ago, Cordell Stewart, and Cordell's nickname was Slash. He played a lot of different positions. He was the quarterback / wide receiver / running back / a bunch of other titles. And our next speaker is also Slash, She lists her title as environmental planner / biologist. So we'll learn, I hope, what / means in that context. She was the winner of the Balling Family GIS Fellowship in the MAS-GIS program, graduated that program in 2015. Also has an undergraduate degree in biological sciences from ASU. Please welcome Meggan Dugan.
Hi, everyone. We'll get to the / thing. So I work for SWCA Environmental Consultants, and I just wanted to start off with an explanation of what a consultant is, because I think there's a lot of confusion about consultants, particularly with students. I was definitely very confused about what a consultant was when I was a student, and I actually really was confused for a while afterwards, before I got a job with SWCA. So basically, environmental consultants in particular are not, what we do is not easily understand because we do literally everything. We work for both federal, state, private organizations, and even individuals. Basically, we do whatever fun science stuff you need, but with the goal of helping our clients navigate regulatory requirements and make informed decisions. So, you know, I don't know, is anyone in here familiar with the National Environmental Policy Act in planning? Okay, cool. So you guys kind of know what I'm talking about. So let's see. How did I get here? We've already gone over my education, but I'm going to just take a moment and double down on what everyone else has said, is that the experience you get in internships and other similar entry-level positions is crucial for basically allowing you to get experience and understand what you want to do for the rest of your career. I was lucky enough, after graduating in 2010, I got an internship with the Arizona Department of Game and Fish, and it was life-changing, obviously. And I stayed with them for actually 2 years, during which I did a lot of really fun stuff. So I'll just skip to my next slide, where there's a lot of really dorky pictures of myself. I basically got to touch and get bit by like most species, which was my dream. But there's, you know, I wanted to do more. So then I ended up, you know, I was talking to one of my mentors at Arizona Game and Fish, and I was like, what should I do? I want to go to grad school. What should I do? And he's like, go into population modeling. And I was like, okay, sounds good. What is that? And I actually ended up getting interested in GIS, and everyone at Game and Fish told me, they're like, don't do GIS, it's boring, you just sit at a desk, but it's like actually like really fun. So that's when in 2014, I entered the MAS-GIS program, not really expecting or understanding what my next steps were going to be, other than I wanted to add a tool to my toolbox. Now, I don't actually do GIS as part of my job title. There could be a third / there, but there is not. Though GIS is really important to what I do on a daily basis, and I will show you an example of that. While I was at ASU, I got roped into functioning as a research assistant for the School of Geographical Sciences and Urban Planning. The school ended up, we wrote the background report for the 2015 Arizona Town Hall on transportation, which I knew nothing about transportation, but I knew a lot by the end of the time that we were done creating this document. Some of the really important things that I learned during that process is infrastructure, which really ties into my job now, and document preparation, which is a really important component of my current job. After doing that, I ended up at the United States Forest Service through Arizona Conservation Corps placement. So I also recommend looking into Corps work. They do actually do planning. They do have planning positions that you can sort of go into different federal agencies and do work. So while I was at Tonto National Forest, I started off doing GIS and I fell backwards into planning. Now, I had never taken a planning class in my life. I did not know really any of the academic functions behind planning. I just learned it all on the job, which I'm not going to say that that's the best way to do it, but it was the way that I did it. And I didn't think I was going to like it. And similar to GIS, everyone was telling me, don't do planning. You'll be stuck behind a desk, except that I love planning. So I was lucky enough to work on a couple really big projects. I worked on the Tonto National Forest Travel Management Plan, largely in a GIS position, and then I, as a planning position, worked on the Tonto National Forest Plan Revision assessment, which is a very large, both of them actually are very large landscape level natural resource management planning documents. And it wasn't really familiar until I actually got into the documents and started working on them. And it was cool. I really liked it, and I decided that I wanted to do that. So now I work for SWCA, which I actually was introduced to while I worked at Tonto National Forest. And actually, my initial introduction to SWCA was at the ASU Career Festival, the GIS Career Festival in 2014 or 2015. Chris Query is in the audience. He was my first introduction to SWCA. He's a GIS specialist with us. And so that was just an interesting connection that when I went back around and interviewed at SWCA, they remembered me from the Career Fest. Anyway, so my current job is an environmental planner / biologist. Basically what that means is that right now I've been splitting my time equally between planning and biology, except that it doesn't actually work out that way because they really intersect with each other quite seamlessly. So I don't know, I just like having both job titles. to be honest, I work so hard to be a biologist, I want to stay one. So some of my responsibilities at SWCA largely is going to be technical work. A lot of that is because, similar to you guys, I am a early to mid-career professional. I'm probably the closest to, out of all the presenters, to students. So I'm trying to keep this light and fun because I was you just a few years ago. So some of the other tasks that I do, in addition, I'll show you some examples of some of the really cool technical work that I've been working on with SWCA. But a couple of the other components of my job includes project management, which I thought I was going to hate, and I kind of like it. So it's leading a team of resource specialists to meet a goal, a very vague goal, because the goals are always different based on all of the projects and depending on the client and depending on the resource. And so it's always different, which is my favorite part about my job. And then the less fun but very important business development. And I'm going to stand here and tell you, again, you should definitely get comfortable talking to people. You should definitely take the opportunities to learn how to present ideas and, talk to potential clients, because particularly in consulting, we have to go out there and get our own work. The work does not come to us. So if I want to work on cool projects, I need to go out there and convince someone to pay me to do it. And it's not, business development is hard, but also fun. I don't just stand in front of things, mostly. At work, I'm actually mostly sitting behind a computer, but I'm doing cool stuff behind the computer, and I want to just take I've got a couple examples of some of my favorite projects I've worked on, and hopefully it'll give you an idea of, what we're doing at SWCA. So I don't know if anyone remembers what happened in 2016, but the Bears Ears National Monument was designated under a presidential proclamation. And then in 2017, the boundaries were changed under a different presidential proclamation. And this was there was a lot of public concern surrounding this, which made it interesting for me because I like a complex, nasty project. And then there's also another thing that made this project in particular interesting is that there was such a complex suite of conflicting land uses and conflicting interests. And what I really like about planning is finding a solution to all of these conflicting uses that are in the best interest of the resources and also in the best interest of stakeholders. So a couple interesting aspects of this project is that was it 2017 is when there was a streamlining order. So for those of you that are familiar with NEPA, there was a executive order that went out that essentially required NEPA documents be streamlined. So they were now subject to page limitations and time frame limitations, which made pulling off the development of a management plan for a newly designated national monument that was originally 1.5 million acres, and now is still pretty large, 330,000 acres. Still a pretty large area with a lot of moving parts. It had never been accomplished before, so that was a really, really cool task to attempt to tackle, and we did it. We did it pretty well. Let's see. Sorry, I've got some stats here. So let's see. Has anyone read a land management plan before? Okay, I mean, you guys probably. So no students. They're not as boring as you think. They're kind of fun. I would recommend reading them. Pick your favorite national park, maybe. There's definitely going to be a land management plan associated with that. If you're interested in this kind of work, it is always fun and interesting. Let's see. So our stats. Oh, sorry, I lost my mouse. Nope. Technical difficulties. All right. Well, anyway, the notice of intent was published in July. What happened? It's fine. I'll riff. The notice of intent was published in, I believe, July. No, it was published January 16th, 2017, and we published a draft EIS, including all of the coordination that went into that in August of 2017, and then we published a final EIS in July, 1 year later, which was a amazing task. So we will see if the management plan will get used, depending on what happens with litigation. So another really, this one's probably my favorite, and this one we're actually still working on it. We're working on it right now, and it's probably the coolest thing I've worked on since I started working at SWCA. It is the perfect combination of slashes between planning, GIS, and wildlife ecology. So one of our clients is Babbitt Ranches. So I don't know if any other public land nerds out here know who Bruce Babbitt is. Former governor of Arizona, and also the Secretary of the Interior. He's the creator of the National Land Conservation System, so all of your conservation lands, wild wilderness areas, wild and scenic rivers, et cetera, thanks to Bruce Babbitt. The Babbitts are really great champions of responsible ranching and ecology, and we've been working with them for many years on a bunch of really cool research projects out in northern Arizona. I don't know, so in red, that's the CO Bar Ranch. It's off the 89 north of Flagstaff, where all the cool cinder cones are. So we've been doing a lot of golden eagle work out there for many years, and part of the research we've been doing with golden eagles is that we've been doing a lot of prey-based studies. With the intention of managing the land to increase production of golden eagles in that area. Why are golden eagles important? Why does anyone care? They're cool. First things first, I'm a big eagle. I like a lot of eagles. And then secondly, they are protected under the Golden Eagle Protection Act. So this is important because as the U.S. energy sector is shifting towards renewables, that comes with a different suite of impacts than perhaps a traditional natural gas or coal-fired energy generation has. And one of those types of renewable energy is wind. Wind turbines are known to kill eagles, which is unfortunate. There is a trade-off with lower emissions. So what a lot of research has been being done about with eagles is how do we offset those impacts in one area where we can generate energy from wind in another area. And the reason why turbines kill eagles, they don't do it on purpose. The tips of the turbines, they rotate at about 200 miles an hour, and it's just too fast. Eagles don't know about wind turbines. And so if we could have an education program, it would be great. But they can't avoid them, and they'll get clipped, and eagle's a long-lived species with a low reproduction rate. So when you lose an eagle, it's a pretty big loss. So the reason why we are interested in golden eagles on Babbitt ranches is because we have a ton of research already done, and they work really closely with Arizona Game and Fish with their eagle management program, and there are a lot of eagles out there, which is cool, and we want to keep it that way, and we want more eagles. And eagle production is intrinsically tied to prey availability during the nesting and brooding times. So the idea is if you can boost rabbit populations, there's that ecological lift that happens where you're going to have a greater production because there's more food for the eagles and the eaglets, and then they'll fledge, and then there's more rabbits out there for them to catch, and then they'll have more babies, etc. So what we are doing, this is where GIS comes in, is that we're working on an ecological niche model, which is also known as species distribution modeling. This is actually a skill that I learned here at ASU while I was in the MAS-GIS program, and I was allowed to take an extra class. And it was in species distribution modeling with Dr. Franklin, who is now at, I think, the University in the California system. But basically, it's a statistical modeling where we're going to take all of these 8 years of data that we have on rabbit locations across CO Bar Ranch on the Babbitt Ranch lands, and you basically you model the statistical likelihood of certain environmental variables present where these rabbits are. And actually, fun fact, there was a career fest where I actually presented on this when I was a student. Not this project, but the same thing. So it's full circle. So basically what we're going to do is we're doing an ecological niche model, and the outcome of that is going to be, we will be looking at what sort of variables are correlated with presence of rabbits, and then how are we going to manage the land to increase rabbit production. And yeah, it's a cool project in progress. Stay tuned. There'll probably be some stuff on it maybe later. So yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Megan. As you can probably tell, for the math experts in the room, we're a little behind schedule in where we hope to be before 3 p.m., but nobody's going to disappear out of the other room, so we'll get you over there as soon as we can, and we hope you can stay with us to hear from our remaining three speakers. Let's take just 10 seconds to stand up, stretch, do whatever you need to do, refresh your mind as we get ready to hear from our next speaker. Okay, and that was 10 seconds. Fantastic. Thank you. So our previous speaker mentioned that she was in your shoes most recently. Our next speaker was also in your shoes in the past. He graduated from ASU in 1987 and 1994 with an undergraduate degree in design and a master's degree in environmental planning. I'm not sure if anybody in this region has ever used our streets, but he is currently involved in the management of streets for the city of Phoenix. He actually worked through public transit and is now in the streets department. I also just learned that the city of Phoenix street transportation department is rated 5 stars on Google. but there's only been one review, so we'll have to look into that. But we're perhaps. But we're really happy that Mark Melnychenko has joined us from the city of Phoenix. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you, everyone. It's interesting seeing all the different types of planning and activities that are presented today, from environmental to data and now to transportation. As was said, I have 2 degrees. My wife has a degree. My daughter has 2 degrees. So we bleed maroon and gold. So glad to be here today. And as was said, I'm Deputy Director in the Street Transportation Department for City of Phoenix. And my background is planning. And I started in the public sector, or private sector, and then moved over to the public sector in the public transit department, and was instrumental in building our transit system and all of the passenger facilities that are throughout the city. From there, I was asked to move over to the City of Phoenix Streets Department, which is really a gathering of engineers. And so they said, well, we'd like you to come over and kind of begin to expand our planning arm. So it was interesting being in a sea of engineers, but now we have a very large planning section in our department. I'd like to ask a couple of people, what is the reason you are interested in planning? If a couple of students may answer that. Anyone? Yes, sir.
Alleviating traffic.
Okay. Anyone else?
I think the diverse communication within your community.
Okay, very good. Let me show you why I went into planning. The first item, I'm not very good at math and science. I wanted to find a way, how can I move away from that? But also, it's a pretty strong salary. It takes a while to build up, but it's formidable. Chance to improve my community, using creative analytical skills to solve problems. And then lastly, I want to make a difference. And really, all of the above were kind of why I moved in the planning side. As a child, my mom and dad always said, you always ask too many questions. And so I think that's kind of what planners do. They ask questions, they say why. And I think my bosses, the director, the city manager, et cetera, they always, why do you should be able to ask your boss, your teacher, your everyone, you should be able to ask questions. And I think that's a big part of planning. And so we talked about data. Messaging is very important, as also was brought up. How we package the information and provide a message to the community and convey information in an understandable manner. Synthesizing, making that information sing and understandable. Analyzing it, what are ways that we can solve the problem? And then managing all of it. So really, what does all this equate to? Problem solving. That is what planners do. They solve problems. So if we look at this, all of the components of the streets of our transit system, we orchestrate all these parts in the streets. That's what planners do. When I think a lot of times when people think of the streets department of a very, very rigid type department in the city, it is far from that. What we are moving away from is building bigger and wider streets. We aren't widening our streets. We're saying how can we use our streets to its fullest extent? Adding bike lanes. Now we have scooters and bus rapid transit in our streets, light rail, autos. Autos is down at the bottom. So all of these things, how does all this make sense? And then what types of plans and studies are undertaken? My section, which is the programming and project delivery side of streets, takes everything from putting it into the capital improvement program, putting a list of projects, thinking what we want to move ahead on, and then taking it all the way through design and planning, design, construction, all the way to maintenance. That's all in our division, so it's very interesting seeing that whole process. But what types of plans and studies are undertaken in streets? Well, we have mobility area studies where we look into the neighborhoods and how we can improve them. We have corridor studies, and here is an example of one of them in Phoenix that's undertaken now on 3rd and 5th Avenue through the city of Phoenix. Very important. We have from McDowell down to Washington is almost done, design's almost completed. And then now we're working through the Willow neighborhood between Thomas and McDowell. But what's important is this is deemed through our downtown plan, this is an active transportation corridor for bicycle and walking emphasis. 3rd and 3rd, and then Central Avenue for transit is kind of how we have our streets aligned in the middle of the city. So we are proposing here, we're going to be building a 2-way protected cycle track for bicycling on one side. And then through Willow, we're looking at using a portion of the pavement for protection for a multi-use path for biking, walking, jogging. So we're moving in the right direction. We're a city of 2 million people, and it's very, very hard to manage and make all of these things work, but I think we're making progress. Then we also have area or citywide studies. We have our key corridor master plan, which is a citywide effort. And then we also work with our other partners, MAG, the Maricopa County Department of Transportation, and other regional partners. So these are all the types of plans that we also work on. And then, as I said, what's interesting, you can take a project in the beginning from a concept. This is a concept for our Grand Canalscape, which goes through the central part of the city. You may say, well, what does it have to do with streets? Well, we also do the canal work too. So we work with SRP, federal government, and all to make sure that those improvements are safe and usable. So we have a multi-use path system that's being almost completed between Tempe and I-17 through the middle of the city. So we have a concept. We have a grant submittal for the federal government for funding through our Tiger grant. Design and construct it, complete it, and maintain it. All of that done through our division. So it's very interesting to see something that you had an idea, light bulb goes off, and then all the way to using it and maintaining it as part of the community. So the ability to see a project through from start to finish is really kind of gratifying from the planning side. And this is a department, and there are other departments at the city where you're able to do this, but I think this is key to streets. In addition, when we also talk about planning and transportation, we talk about safely moving people. We have our complete streets ordinance and policy and other items in the works, which talks about making sure that the street is fully available for all types of uses. We also want to make sure that our communities are livable through what we implement. And then transportation should also help revitalize communities. So we're working very closely with Choice Neighborhoods and other the Choice Neighborhoods Initiative, which is a federal grant. And then also North 32nd Street is an example of a community we're working with to help revitalize. So a transportation solution, which when we provide an answer, it has multiple outcomes. helping the community, moving people, etc. In planning in streets, these are all the things that we do as planners in the streets department. And someone may say, well, what does signing and striping have to do with that? Well, signing and striping is a major part of our bicycle program because we have a major accelerated pavement program throughout the city. Well, we go back, we look at the existing striping plans and say, can we narrow the lanes? Can we take a lane away? Can we add bicycle lanes for protection? So that's how we really link, and we kind of have some creative avenues to help our active transportation program. So these are all the things that we do. I don't want to touch on all of them, but you can really see there's a lot going on and a lot of opportunities for students and other professionals. What are some of the other last things we're working on? We have our T2050 program, which has 4 separate components. And our emphasis here is on the mobility side in our division, but we also have technology, we have maintenance, and so we also have an active transportation program that is underway, and then our key corridor master plan, which is helping us define all of the corridors in the city and what the primary functions will be. This is kind of it in a nutshell, what we've talked about. We have citywide effort, we have area-specific plans, projects, and then we also go down to the details where we have design guideline manuals. What do we want the striping to look like? What do we want other portions of the street to, what is a vision? We also are including other elements in the street such as bioswales, things like that to capture rainwater. That is, and if you would have talked about this to me and the city 5 years ago, we would have been burned at the stake as heretics. So I think moving in the right direction. Overall, we want to share the road, and we emphasize safety first in everything that we do. And then lastly, just some tidbits. We have a lot of openings through the years and have done been part of a lot of interview processes. And what's important, and I think it was touched on before, internships are very important while you're in school. And we have a lot of opportunities at the City of Phoenix. I would love to talk to many of you. And then making connections through organizations. A resume is very important because that's a door in. Its primary focus is to get you an interview. And then portfolio, in being able to, I think Toastmasters and other things were discussed. You never have enough interviews and opportunities to speak in front of people. It is not easy, but the only way you're going to get better is you do it. And then these are some last things to think about. And these are some of the things that I tell my staff. Think outside the box. There isn't a wrong answer. Let's look at all the solutions. And then when you do something a second time, always do it better. So good luck in your future. Thank you.
Wonderful, Mark. Thank you so much for that great advice. Before we transition to our 5th speaker, I just wanted to acknowledge the 6 folks who have really been working hard behind the scenes to make today a success. They're all staff members in the School of Geographical Sciences and Urban Planning. We're, of course, thankful to our school director, Trislan Nelson, for the vision for this event, although I think the staff members who have been working hard on it would argue that it's been their vision just as much as hers. We're particularly thankful to Meggan Martin, who's here in the back. Eileen Baden has probably gone across the hall now. Nope, she's still here as well. Thank you, Eileen. Barbara Trapito Lurie is across the hallway now. Aaron Musgrave is probably there as well, making sure nobody's stealing any of the refreshments. Shay Lamar and Heather Mole. We thank all of them. We really appreciate your work. It is no small feat to bring all these people together during business hours on a weekday, and thank you for making it a success. Okay, onwards and upwards. We'll now move to think a little bit about water and energy with our next speaker, who's currently a manager for strategic engagement at SRP. I couldn't find what their Google rating is, but it might be a little bit below 5. People have strong opinions about the energy sector. Our next speaker started his educational trajectory on the East Coast at University of Maryland, Baltimore County, then has a master's degree in geography. His master's thesis has very much of a master's thesis title, Copper Variations in Suspended and Bed Sediments in Arizona. Started his career clearly focused on water at the Arizona Department of Water Resources and water-sounding job titles at SRP, but now has a much more impressive and broad title. Again, the manager of strategic engagement at SRP, John Hetrick. Welcome, John.
So as you noted, my job title is manager of strategic engagement, which pretty much tells you nothing. And that's part of the reason I like my job, is because it's a job that is really amorphous in a lot of ways. My primary, the group that I'm responsible for, what we primarily do is position SRP so that we can engage in policy discussions on behalf of our business, our employees, our customers, and the community. And so one of the things I absolutely love about my job is I get to touch on all of the issues that they talked about. We're usually engaged on behalf of SRP. And so the group that I'm in tries to make the relationships and set up the opportunities to engage with, whether it's elected or director heads of agencies, to have those conversations to try to position SRP on behalf of its customers and employees in the best manner possible. So with that, I was going to quickly just go over my kind of career trajectory, because when you think about, manager of strategic engagement, I'm in public affairs, you usually don't think about geography. And I can make this kind of put together as it's a well thought out of career trajectory, but it absolutely was not. It just, by chance, and I've had just absolutely wonderful opportunities to do things I've loved from the beginning. Probably starting out most interesting was when I started with Colorado River Water Modeler. My job was to try to model the Colorado River system to predict how much water the state would need to store underground water banking so that Arizona would have a reliable Colorado River supply for 100 years. So that's really, my background, fluvial geomorphology, a little bit of hydrology, completely fits, that with my educational background. But what this began to let me do was began to get me to understand that the way in which physical systems are managed by people brings you into the policy realm and brings you into trying to understand laws, decrees, court cases to figure out how you can do things. And so from that position, I moved to SRP, where I was engaged a lot in litigation related to water. I was engaged a lot in solving problems through writing new legislation to try to manage water in the state better. From there, I moved on to being the senior principal planning analyst of emerging technologies and innovation, where I dealt with renewable energy projects that were technologies that weren't quite ready for prime time. They were on the cusp of becoming utility scale. So they were smaller scale, and it was testing of different renewable energy projects. Then I moved on, manager of sustainability, policy and programs. So implementing for the first time for SRP, it was a brand new group, was to start setting sustainability goals for the company. So that was a ton of fun. And then I was asked by a good friend of mine who was leaving the company to consider going over to public affairs in strategic engagement. And I've been there for 7 or 8 years now, and it's one of the best jobs that I've had. Just a little bit about why SRP, why you have somebody with a geography background dealing with public affairs, is that SRP is really two companies. We're a water provider and we're an energy provider, so we deal with natural resources. So it's a complete, makes a lot of sense that when your product is a natural resource, that geography background fits very, very nicely. Just a little bit about our water side of the business. I don't know if you know much about it. We are the largest raw water provider in the Phoenix area. We deliver just a little under 1 million acre-feet a year. We operate 7 reservoirs that are located on the Salt and Verde watersheds. So it's 7,000 square miles of watershed. We deliver water to about 250,000 acres within the central Phoenix area. We've been doing that for 120 years. The power side, we are one of the largest public power entities in the United States. We have over 1 million customers. Our portfolio of energy sources ranges from nuclear, coal, natural gas, wind, solar, geothermal, hydropower. So we manage a lot of different resources, and so this gets us into a lot of different types of policy discussions. And so being in public affairs, the role we play for our company is we play the role of kind of being the window in and the window out when it comes to policy discussions. And what I mean by that is we serve as the interface between the technical folks who work at our company and who are very, very skilled and know a lot about whether it be water, power, taxes, cybersecurity, and we then interface with entities in the government for the most part, whether it be the federal government and the state government. And it's kind of one of the interesting things at the state government level. There's kind of, you think the Capitol, you think the legislature, but it also includes the Arizona Corporation Commission, which is kind of under our Constitution, the 4th pillar. And so we follow and work with those entities to see where they're headed on policy issues. We work with our internal staff to see where they think we should be headed on policy issues, and then we communicate back and forth, whether internally what they're thinking at the federal and state levels, and externally we meet with those elected officials and others to try to direct the policy discussion in a way that we think is best for our business, our customers, and our community. So some of the types of issues that we are dealing with, we see for the next 6 years that are kind of the bigger, higher profile issues. As you can see, a lot of them, forestry, water rights settlements, carbon policy, climate change, are traditional, natural resource type issues. But there are other issues that we deal a lot with that are outside of that when you think of things like education funding, economic development, Western energy market, deregulation of retail competition. So that's one of the things I really have enjoyed, is it really has broadened the type of topics that I get to deal with, so that it, I absolutely love, I spent 15 years of my career working on water issues. That's probably the thing that I love the most. But as I've gotten more mature in my career, it's nice to be able to engage in these other topics. So I'm part of our Arizona Government Relations team, and as manager of strategic engagement, to kind of give you an idea of what I actually do. And one of the great things about my job is I bet there's less than 3 people at SRP who actually know what I do. So it's kind of bittersweet telling you guys what I do, because then maybe people will actually find out what a great job it is. But these are the responsibilities under the bigger group that I'm in. The ones that my team is responsible for are our Chamber of Commerce and Business Association relationships. So we are members within Arizona of between 50 and 60 different organizations related to businesses. And you might ask, why would we do that? Well, we're in a number of different communities just within the SRP water service territory. We're in 10 different cities. So right there's 10 different chambers of commerce. But we engage with them because they also, most of those members are our customers also. And so we partner with those entities to to engage in policy discussions for the most part, and to do things within the community that benefit our customers and benefit us as a business. And so we'll do things like we have partnering coming up with the Phoenix Chamber of Commerce next month is their Athena Awards, where they honor women leaders within the community. And so we'll work with them each year to put on that event and to identify women within the community that have gone above and beyond, whether just in their professional career, but also mentoring and showing leadership within the community. And one of the drivers, as I said, is kind of driving the policy discussions within the business community. I have the opportunity right now to serve as the president of the board of the East Valley Chamber of Commerce Alliance, which is an alliance of 7 chambers. It represents 5,000 businesses and over 200,000 employees. And so one of the things that we do to kind of get into the details of the job is every Monday morning for about 8 months of the year, I meet with them to go over a legislative agenda. And so we've been working the last 3 months on the upcoming legislative session to go over what the priorities are for the business community in the East Valley. And then once the legislative session gets going, we will meet every Monday morning and we will go over each and every bill that's introduced to determine how they impact businesses and to determine whether or not the business community should take a position on those. And one of the worst things about my job is Monday mornings, because that starts at 7:30 in Mesa. It's a 45-minute drive for me. And then I follow that up with another hour-and-a-half meeting with all of our lobbyists to go over all of the bills from SRP's perspective. So every Monday morning during the legislative session, my mornings are pretty much gone and no work gets done. But they're interesting discussions. Another area that my group is responsible for is our political involvement committee. This is more commonly referred to as a political action committee. I'm not sure if you know what that is, but it's an organization that our employees voluntarily contribute to. So about 525 of our employees give us money that we then use to engage with elected officials or candidates for elected positions through campaign contributions. And this is actually, that's what most PACs typically do. The other thing that we do a lot of that I'm very proud of at SRP is we do a lot of employee engagement. So we host numerous events for our employees to engage with elected officials. So, for example, we have lunches, we have dinners, we have coffee talks. We'll have Senator Sinema come in. We've had Senator McSally come in. We've had pretty much all of our representatives come in. We've had Governor Ducey. We usually have the leadership of the House and Senate at the state level. We have mayors come in, we have councilmen come in to engage with employees, because we think it's important for our employees to understand the policy issues that are important to SRP and for them to make educated decisions on where they think they should stand and who they should vote for. And so that's one of the things I love about engaging in policy for SRP is we are nonpartisan. Not anything we decide on is about partisanship. It's about business decisions and positions that are good for SRP, good for, as I've said, our customers and our community. Another thing that we do is international relations. So we have staff that host contingencies that come from other countries that are interested in learning about water systems, electric systems, forestry, and so we will have our staff put on presentations, give tours, and engage with those officials. We deal a lot with the State Department who brings tours through. So that's kind of the gist of what my job is. It's not the traditional job you think of when you get a degree in geography, but it has really prepared me well to deal with a lot of the issues, because a lot of the issues really it's thinking, systems thinking, and it's understanding physical systems and human systems. And I could not have thought of I wish I could have said that I had this planned out, but it's been a great great trajectory, and ASU geography has been a huge help to me. I've done a number of projects with them since leaving. One of the topics that was talked about was Grand Canal and biking. We did a project with Mike Hubie where he looked at bike connectivity within the valley to try to link the canals in better with the transportation system. That was when I was in the sustainability department. So ASU's been a great partner. Love working with them. And please, if you have questions for me after this, I'll be at SRP's table. Thanks.
Thank you, John. And that was a good reminder that our speakers will be available across the hallway afterwards for continued discussion. And we look forward to deeper engagement with them there.